Hello and welcome. We are so glad you are learning more about the Fellowship and Unitarian Universalism. Today I am joined by Leah Thibodeau. Leah has been a worship leader for the Fellowship for many years. We will start this session like we start our Sunday services, by lighting our chalice. A flame within a chalice, or cup with a stem and foot, is the primary symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And at the opening of many Unitarian Universalist worship services, classes, and other gatherings, a chalice is lit. It unites those present in worship and symbolizes the spirit of our work. We will use the same chalice lighting words as we do in our services. We light this flame as a symbol of new life and lightening our way, as the symbol of the warmth in every human heart. Let the lighting of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of hope, of peace, of love. May we share that light with all people.
All right, thanks so much, Marie, for getting us started. I am honored to be here with you today to talk a little bit about what worship looks like at the Fellowship. And when I was first asked to talk to our inquirers about worship, I will tell you it was a little bit tricky for me to kind of wrap my brain around the whole idea. So my Catholic upbringing conjures up certain images of worship for me, memories of what that looked like: kneeling, praying, the sacraments. And I remember being, at our Catholic Mass, and there were times when I would just be so in it. I was just so in the moment. I was so moved, and I just having some kind of wonderful experience. And I thought, okay, when I am at the Fellowship, what does worship mean there? What does it look like? And one thing that I realized when I put myself back in that Catholic church experience, and I think about those times when I was deep in that feeling and I would kind of look around myself, I realized that not everyone there was having the same experience that I was having. So there was not an element of the church or necessarily of the service, because if it were just the church, if it were just the service, if it was just the prayer, everyone around me would be having that same deep sense of worship. And what I realized is not everyone was doing that. So that experience that I was having, I was bringing that experience to that moment. I was connecting to something bigger than myself. I was open to that experience. And what I have found at the Fellowship is that that same opportunity exists, and for me, in even more deep and meaningful ways. So for some people, it can seem like a shift. And when we use the word worship, what does that mean for us here? So what I can tell you is that the word worship, Reverend Christina often likes to remind us that is an old English word. And if we were together, I could spell this for you on a board, but it's worthship. WEORTHSCIPE, worthship. And that means worthiness, an acknowledgement of something's worth. And the English translation then became worthship. So that means that it is worthy, essentially. For us, what that means is when we give meaning or worth to something or to shape things of worth. Worship speaks to our experience in life. It touches our feelings, challenges us to develop deeper relationships, and connects us to things that are beyond ourselves. And that's, I think, a really great way to think about how we worship at the fellowship. So we have our services, our worship services each week. And for those services, we draw on our 7 sources with an emphasis on Jewish and Christian traditions. I can go over a typical order of service for you, if that would be helpful. If you are watching this and you haven't seen an order of service, or you would like one as a point of reference, you can go right to our website where you will find the link to our weekly services. There's also a link there for our order of service. So you can have that for reference. I printed mine out, so that can be a handy reference for you as we go through this. But typically we'll have some prelude music before the service begins, and then our gathering song. Our gathering song is Enter, Rejoice, and Log In. And that is a very upbeat song. It is a call to gather. It's time to come together. It's very uplifting, and it feels really great to know that we're all singing that together. And then we'll have a welcome, and followed by our settling song. Now our settling song is a little different than our gathering song. The settling song signals to us it's time to center. It's time to breathe. It's time to settle in this space of our togetherness. Even if we're apart, we're sharing this experience together. So that settling song helps get us in that space. Then we have our chalice lighting. As Marie lit our chalice for us today, we will do that together in community at our service. And then usually that will be followed by a hymn. So music is pretty important to us at the fellowship. It is an important part of worship. It allows us to connect with the deeper parts of ourselves together. Even when we are apart, we really sense this coming togetherness, and we find that music can be very deeply moving. It can help us express things that we might need to express, or sometimes even things we didn't know that we need to express, and really helps bring us together in community. So you'll see that often in our order of service, that some kind of music or song pops up rather frequently. Okay, so we've had our gathering song, a settling song, a welcoming words, our chalice lighting, a hymn, and then it's time to move into our offering. So during our offering, we are reminded that we have an opportunity to take care of ourselves, as well as take care of those around us. And at our offering, it really is not just about an ask for how we can care for each other, but it's also an opportunity, a reminder for how we can ask for the things that we might be needing as well. And following our offering, we have another responsive song. The words for this song are, "From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live." And I think that's a great testament to the spirit of our offering. Then we typically will have a segment called the Wonder Box. And this was originally intended to really speak to the heart of children, but I find as an adult, it is a very enriching part of the service, and I see that in other adults during the service as well. So our Wonder Box is some kind of box, a little treasure box that will have a surprise inside. And together we are given the opportunity to wonder about what might be in the box. And that's a really good reminder for us, especially as Unitarian Universalists, of our appreciation for the magic of wonder, that we don't know everything, and that's okay. But what's important is bringing that sense of wonder and curiosity, and then maybe finding things out. And sometimes we find answers and sometimes we don't, but that's okay as long as we keep wondering. So we'll have an opportunity to guess what we think might be in the box, and then whatever is in the wonder box is revealed, and always there is a message there that relates to the overall theme or message of the service. And I think that's a really great enrichment to the service overall. So after the Wonder Box, we follow then with sharing of joys and concerns. So this is an opportunity for us to share each other's burdens. And we know that when we share burdens, then that burden is lessened for each person. And then we also can share each other's joys. And when we share joy, those joys are multiplied. So that is a great way for us to be together in community during our service. Let's see, then we follow that with a moment of silence. This is an opportunity to quietly uplift the joys and concerns that have been shared with us that day, along with those that maybe were not shared out loud, but live quietly in the space of our heart. And we do that with silent reflection. That can be a time for meditation, for prayer, whatever is your own personal practice. Space is given for that at this time in the service. Now, after that, there usually will be a reflection by a worship leader, and then the sermon. Sometimes the order of these things change. What's great is that we have basic elements of a service, but we give ourselves a lot of flexibility to change things up, move things around. It's a really important part of how we structure our services. Is some elements will be consistent, but we let ourselves try some different things from time to time. And sometimes we find that those things work so well, we might do them again. And sometimes we're like, hey, that was great for that service, but we don't need to do that again. It just all depends, but that's a wonderful part about the crafting of the services. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments here. But the reflection typically is done by the worship leader, and the sermon usually is done by the minister. And sometimes who's doing what can even change a little bit. Let's see. Following the sermon, then, there usually is an opportunity for congregational response. In our virtual existence these days, we find that our congregational response is allowed for through our coffee hour, so to speak, at the end of the service, when we are able to get together virtually in our small groups and share our thoughts or feelings about the service. And if anything comes up throughout the service that we feel needs more attention or we would like more help with, contact information is always made available for how we can get in touch with our ministers or Marie, or for whomever that question might be directed. We will always make it possible for you to follow up with any response that you might have. And then there will be our closing song, more music. And Marie always pops in to let us know how the section, here is called Service to Each Other and the World. And this is where Marie lets us know how we can put our UU principles into action, whether it is within our own congregation, but most commonly beyond our four walls, how we can really put those principles into action to serve our community as a whole, or the world even as a whole. Sometimes it's beyond our own direct community. So we've given opportunity to practice what we've learned during our service. And then we will extinguish our chalice and get ready to go our ways with hope in our hearts and our spirits renewed. So that's a little bit of what a typical service might look like. Any questions about that, Marie?
One, that was a really fabulous outline of what a typical service looks like. I know you're going to talk about that. Not all services are typical. A couple things that did pop up for me is one of them was the coffee hour that you alluded to. What we've been doing in this virtual world is after the service is done, we break out into smaller groups for those people who want to get to know each other and to have some conversation, but those are completely optional. I am finding though that when newcomers participate in those, it's a really great way to get to know some faces, some names. That's actually easier than in person. I think we're a really welcoming, friendly congregation, but after a service, a lot of times people go off and find their friends, and sometimes newcomers have a hard time finding people to have a deep conversation with. But these breakout groups are a really great opportunity for that. And we're hoping to even, try some new things out to make sure that everyone has opportunities of those that type of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just wanted to say that sometimes the person leading the service who does the sermon is not one of our ministers. It's a lay leader, or we have a guest minister from somewhere else. I'm going to be, I lead services once in a while. And so that's always fun to hear different perspectives.
It is definitely good to hear different perspectives, and I appreciate that we have so many people from throughout the community who can share themselves with us in that way. So wonderful. Thank you for that feedback too. And so we've talked a little bit about the order of the service, but how does all of that happen, right? So I'll talk for just a few minutes here about how our services are planned and the role of the worship leader. So we have, I think it's 7 or 8 folks who are lay leaders with the fellowship. And as worship leaders, we meet with Reverend Christina, and we will discuss how we feel worship is going at the fellowship. Everything from big lofty goals and ideas to the minutia of the timing of certain things, even how many minutes or seconds might be spent on an individual part of the service. So we're constantly looking at those things to make sure that we are utilizing our time well, and really giving people that opportunity to have the experience, that true sense of worship. And while we are together, one of the things that we do is we look at a calendar. And our ministers are rock stars, and they have calendars out at least 12 months in advance, typically, as our guideposts for how we're going to work through a program year. And the program year typically starts in September and runs through May. And we will have an idea of the service for every week. And as worship leaders, we go through and we can give some feedback on that. We look at our calendars, we see when we're available, and we basically sign up to help lead those services. A few weeks prior to the service, depending on who our minister is for that particular service, we will get together and talk about the concept of the service, start brainstorming what that's going to look like, figuring out who's going to handle what part of the service and things like that. And hopefully by now you've had the opportunity to join us for a service so you can see what the end result of that work is. So as the worship leader then at the service, you know, our role primarily is to make sure that people feel welcome. You know, even before service, we can be available to help with any questions or any accommodations that we can assist with. And then during the service, our role really is to the extent that we're able to work to create that sense of togetherness and to provide a unique perspective on whatever we might be discussing at that service. So you heard Marie say earlier, it's nice to have different perspectives on things. So the worship leaders are there to provide a different way of looking at something. And what I really enjoy about crafting a service, I've worked primarily with Reverend Christina, is that we can look at parts of each other's experience and find out how we can use those different aspects to show different sides of something. So I think that helps us reach more people, perhaps in terms of really understanding or grasping or connecting to that message when you can have those multiple perspectives. So that the ability to do that is an important part of our service. Marie, anything come up for you as questions about what the worship leader does?
You know, one of the things that really made me, that it reminded me was how many different types of spiritual backgrounds we have coming to the fellowship. We have a lot of diversity when it comes to people's backgrounds. And so having those different perspectives, I think really enriches and also helps people who have a different perspective than one of our ministers. I think that's been really important for us.
Mm-hmm. I know that in my time at the fellowship, in being able to share those experiences with people, and maybe taking part in a religious tradition or hearing about a different religious tradition, I would be like, I can't believe I haven't heard about this until now. It's like I almost feel like something has been missing. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to continue to expand and learn. And it is wonderful that we have so many, such a diverse congregation of people who are willing to share that with us. Yeah. All right. So this is when I would usually start going over our program year a little bit. And the program year really just kind of helps provide some consistency, some continuity, and gives us opportunity to have some rituals that really bring us together as a community as well. So again, service planning is done in the context of the program year. So like I said, it usually runs from September until May. But for the sake of this, I'll look at this from a calendar year perspective, just to make it a little bit easier. So starting in January, we celebrate the turning of the year. And this gives us an opportunity to come together as a community, share things that have happened in the previous year that have been very important to us. Some difficult things and some wonderful things, and those can all be lifted up at that time as we prepare ourselves for the coming of the next year. Martin Luther King Day is also very important to us at the fellowship, so we will find special services and other activities to help us grow in our understanding, in our own sense of activism and what that might be for us. That's going to be different for each person, but that's all part of the growth, the growing opportunity that comes from that time of year especially. As we head into spring and April, we will celebrate Easter and Earth Day as well. So those are hallmarks for us at that time of year. In May, we have some rites of passage. primarily our coming of age program and our bridging program. So coming of age is for our youth, and these are folks typically, oh, remind me, grades 9, 10, right?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So our 9th and 10th graders will have gone through, if they chose to go through our coming of age program. And I have 2 children now who have been through the program. And I won't go on too much about that. I know that's not the purpose of this recording, but I could say all kinds of wonderful things about that. But in May, we'll have a service where youth who have gone through that program will have an opportunity to share with us what that program has meant to them. And they will also share with us their personal credo, which is kind of the culmination. The writing of that credo is the culmination of that program, and they will share those with us. And it's fascinating to really connect with the minds of the youth through that service. And then also we have our bridging service. So this is for high school seniors who are graduating and getting ready to enter the world. And they might talk a little bit about how their lives have changed since they have gone through our coming of age program. And that's a wonderful time, again, for the community to come together. You know, some of us have seen some of these young adults since they were little babies, and as a community have been able to have part in their spiritual upbringing, and really can feel like part of family. So it's nice to be able to have the opportunity to send them off, you know, be part of their bridging from youth to adulthood. Okay, in the summer, we typically have the summer series, and this is usually an opportunity for us to take those couple of months and focus on something a little different than the program year. We often will have guest ministers during the summer, and sometimes lay leaders too might lead the services during our summer months as well. We don't want to forget our flower communion. I almost forgot that earlier. Flower communion is another ritual for us where we come together bringing a flower, and this is one of those things I was wondering, how do we talk about this in the virtual age? But we come bringing this flower, this sense of beauty that represents our individual contribution to our congregation, and then we leave with a different flower, perhaps, when we could be together. So it was a sense of the beauty that happens when we all come together, and then the beauty that we can take away that might be different. You know, we change when we come to service. You know, this year's flower communion was beautiful. Being able to see, even virtually, everyone's flowers. I didn't have a flower, so I had to draw one, but still, I was pretty proud of my artwork for that. And to see the wonderful artwork that was made, really with all of the members of the congregation that were able to get a picture submitted. It was absolutely beautiful. And now that I've talked about that, Marie, I feel like I need to let people know if they want to see that. I'm assuming that maybe that's available on our website.
Yes, yes. I'll make sure that it's there for people to find. I'll actually, I'll put a link to it in the notes about this particular session.
Perfect. Okay. I'm taking us to all kinds of places today. Okay. Let's see, as we head into fall, September, again, in the era of COVID, I don't know what our mingling of the water service might look like, but this is typically a very meaningful ritual for us at the fellowship. This is where we will bring water that has some kind of significance for us from the summer months. So perhaps if we visited our favorite lake, maybe a little water from there. If we were home and just right now we're home, water might be from home. So really the water could be from anywhere, but we would bring that together, mingle that together, and then that water would be treated very, very thoroughly and very well. But the water that is created from the culmination of all of our experiences then will be used in the future for other rituals, such as baby dedications, or other rituals and services where we want to bring the blessing of our communion together into that space. So in October, we lift up the Jewish High Holy Days. Again, where has that been all my life? I'm so glad that I get to participate in that now. November, highlight in Thanksgiving, and in December, we celebrate Advent, solstice, and Christmas. So that kind of puts some of our consistent rituals and practices throughout the year. And there are a lot of benefits to having a program year. First of all, this predictable pattern can be very comforting and welcoming too as we settle into some of those patterns. But again, always with a balance of tradition and innovation. So we do like to try new things, but our goal here is not to surprise you with something new at every service. We want there to be a certain level of predictability so that can help provide space for you to bring your own joys and concerns into the service and really settle into that, knowing that they are held in something that is larger than ourselves. This tradition, however, gives us the framework for familiar yet challenging spiritual experiences throughout the course of the year. So some of our other traditions include the child dedications, all ages services. Again, looks a little bit different in the COVID era. It is great though. I think that all of our services now are all ages. As you look through the video or the thumbprints, we see all generations together sharing service time, which is wonderful. And then our coffee hour, which is still being facilitated. We talked a little bit about that and how we can still meet together after service right now to deepen our connection to the messages that we've heard or just to our friends in the fellowship congregation. So yeah.
I think one thing that is good to uplift that there is often a theme to the program year where it's typically there's an overarching theme for the whole year and then sub-themes. So this coming year, most likely the overall theme is going to be growing resiliency, and then throughout the year there will be kind of sub-themes under that, which kind of gives us something to talk about in different groups and different settings, and that can always come back to then the services. And sometimes then the summer has a different theme. Our summer theme right now is called Finding a Way. We are all finding a new way in this new changed world. And so that's been a really rich conversation piece for us.
Yes, definitely. I love how our themes help us build on that worship experience from one week to the next. It just makes the whole year a continual opportunity for growth.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been really a lot of really great information. For people who want to learn more, we certainly have other information on the website. And if you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, I would recommend that you go to uua.org, which is the website to our national organization that has a lot more information about Unitarian Universalism. But with that, I am going to extinguish our chalice using the same words that we use each week in service. As we extinguish this flame, let us go our ways with hope in our hearts, with our spirits renewed, and with a deeper understanding of life's mystery. Let us carry the light of compassion and commitment to build a better world.